Hello, and thank you for joining me here on America Speaks Blog Talk Radio, where America gets to speak. My name is Paula Flo, your show hostess on this third Monday of January 2013, set aside for honoring the life of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And a surprise for everyone is that I've invited Dr. King to meet with us here today for a brief interview regarding the issue of USA school beatings and his thoughts on this maltreatment of America's primarily socioeconomically disadvantaged school children. So without delay, Dr. King, here is my first question for you. I know how busy you must be, being the angel that you are. What helped you to accept our invitation to join us for an interview here today?
I join you in this meeting because I'm in deepest agreement with the aims and work of the organization which has brought us together. I could not be silent in the face of such cruel manipulation of the poor.
Well, Dr. King, I knew I could count on you. It's been difficult for me to find a single church to support the cause for ending this brutal practice in USA schools. What do you have to say to church leaders and their members who ignore this maltreatment of children in the hands of unprofessional and even criminal American educators?
Because I believe that the Father is deeply concerned, especially for his suffering and helpless and outcast children. I come tonight to speak for them. This I believe to be the privilege and the burden of all of us who deem ourselves bound by allegiances and loyalties which are broader and deeper than nationalism and which go beyond our nation's self-defined goals and positions. We are called to speak for the weak, for the voiceless, for the victims of our nation, and for those it calls enemy. For no document from human hands can make these humans any less our brothers.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, Dr. King. Perhaps there will be a congregation listening today that will be responsive. My next question is, while children hear on the news that U.S. governing officials claim to want to end U.S. bullying, what do you think goes through the minds of children sanctioned for beatings in American schools?
They must see Americans as strange liberators.
I can only imagine. Well, my next question is, what might be going through the minds of the wealthy who allow these beatings to be targeted at American school children?
We are on the side of the wealthy and the secure while we create a hell for the poor. Somehow this madness must cease.
Indeed, sir. My next question for you. What would you say contributes to this issue of school beatings lasting into the new millennium, a time of great scientific advancements?
These voiceless ones, we have destroyed that two most cherished institutions, the family and the village.
How sad and how true. My next question has to do with the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The U.S. is one of the only two countries in the world which has failed to ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child, or the CRC. The other country is Somalia. This is a human rights treaty for children. Nations that have already ratified this treaty include Saudi Arabia, Iran, India. Please comment on what you think happened with our leaders when we did not choose to sign this treaty for safe children globally.
We again fell victim to the deadly Western arrogance that has poisoned the international atmosphere for so long.
I see. Well, my next question has to do with children seeking change. What advice have you to offer them?
Social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action.
What honorable and wise words you're setting before our children, Dr. King. I have just a few more questions for you. What will it take for America to arrive at the right side of the world revolution for peace?
I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, when machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people. The giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. A true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. On the one hand, we are called to play the Good Samaritan on life's roadside, but that will be only an initial act. One day we must come to see that the whole Jericho road must be transformed so that men and women will not be constantly beaten and robbed as they make their journey on life's highway.
Well, amen to that, Dr. King. And I now have only 2 questions left for you. This one is advice that you would offer to parents, educators, or anyone who is taking care of the young. What is a basic understanding that parents and educators must develop in order to raise children peacefully?
We must understand their feelings, even if we do not condone their actions.
That's wonderful advice, Dr. King, for all who have children in their care. Now, this is our final question for you. You are known worldwide for your compassion. You received the Nobel Peace Prize for Humanity at age 25 or perhaps 26 years old. What is true compassion to you, sir?
True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring.
Thank you, sir. And would you like to add a few final words?
The world now demands a maturity of America.
Indeed. Well, Dr. King, thank you so much for joining us here today. You continue to inspire the hearts and minds of people worldwide to good deeds, compassion, and love. I pray that as a result of your message today, that many a child in America will be protected from sanctioned and lawless abuse incurred not only in their schools, but wherever they call home. I'd like to thank my listening audience for being with us here on America Speaks, where America gets to speak. And we hope today you will let a child or youth know that they are loved and safe when they are in your hands. God bless, and happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day from Paula Flo, your show hostess. Bye-bye now.
50 years ago, the great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society. The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society. Finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. 100 years later, America has given the Negro people a bad check. 100 years later, come back marked insufficient funds. 100 years later, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. America has given the Negro people a bad check. The Negro is still languished in the corners of American society. the Negro still is not free. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America till the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America till the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. That is something that I must say to my people. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day God's children be able to sing with new meaning, my country tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the hiking Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last.